George Berkeley was an Irish philosopher and Anglican bishop who made significant contributions to the fields of metaphysics, epistemology, and the philosophy of perception. He is best known for his theory of immaterialism, which asserts that physical objects do not exist independently of the mind that perceives them. Let's explore the core themes and ideologies of Berkeley's philosophy, his key works, his influences, and his legacy. First, let's explore immaterialism, or idealism. Imagine a virtual reality game where everything you see and interact with exists only because the game is being run on a computer. If the computer is turned off, all those things cease to exist. Berkeley argued that physical objects do not exist independently of our perception of them. Instead, objects are collections of sensations or ideas perceived by minds. This philosophy, known as immaterialism or idealism, posits that only minds and their ideas exist. Next, let's examine esse est percipi. To be is to be perceived. Think of a beautiful painting that only exists visually when someone is looking at it. Without an observer, the painting's visual qualities do not exist. Berkeley's famous dictum, esse est percipi, encapsulates his view that an object's existence is contingent upon it being perceived. For something to exist, it must be perceived by a mind. Thus, the existence of the physical world depends on its being perceived by a mind, whether human or divine. Now let's discuss the role of God in perception. Consider a vast library where books appear in front of you when you think about them, maintained by an all-knowing librarian who ensures the books are available whenever needed. Berkeley believed that God plays a crucial role in his theory of perception. He argued that objects continue to exist even when not perceived by humans because God, an infinite mind, constantly perceives everything. This divine perception ensures the continuity and consistency of the physical world. Next, let's uncover the critique of abstract ideas. Think of a recipe book where each recipe describes specific dishes, but there is no general recipe that exists independently of these specific instances. Berkeley critiqued the notion of abstract ideas, arguing that all ideas are particular and concrete. He believed that it is impossible to form an abstract idea that is not based on a specific instance. For example, we can think of a particular tree, but the concept of tree, without reference to any particular tree, is meaningless. Lastly, let's dive into sensory experience and reality. Imagine a movie theater where the film projected on the screen creates a vivid experience for the audience, even though the images are not tangible objects. Berkeley emphasized the importance of sensory experience in understanding reality. He argued that our sensory experiences are the basis of all knowledge, and there is no need to posit the existence of a material substance behind these experiences. Reality, for Berkeley, consists entirely of the ideas we perceive. Now let's look at Berkeley's influences and inspirations, starting with John Locke. Think of a student who builds upon the foundational work of a mentor, refining and challenging some of the mentor's key assumptions. Berkeley was influenced by John Locke's empirical approach to philosophy, but disagreed with Locke's distinction between primary and secondary qualities and his notion of material substance. Berkeley sought to address what he saw as inconsistencies in Locke's philosophy by rejecting the existence of material substance altogether. Next, the empirical tradition. Consider a gardener who focuses on the immediate, tangible aspects of plants rather than hypothesizing about unseen forces. Berkeley was part of the broader empirical tradition, which emphasized knowledge derived from sensory experience. His radical empiricism led him to the conclusion that only ideas and perceptions are real, and there is no need to posit the existence of an unseen material world. Now, let's review key works of Berkeley. A Treatise Concerning the Principles of Human Knowledge. This work outlines Berkeley's immaterialist philosophy, arguing against the existence of material substance and for the primacy of perception. 3 dialogues between Hylas and Philonous. A more accessible presentation of his ideas, this work uses a dialogue format to explore and defend immaterialism. An essay towards a new theory of vision. In this work, Berkeley examines the nature of visual perception and its relation to the understanding of distance, size, and position. Alciphron, or the Minute Philosopher, a philosophical dialogue that addresses and critiques various contemporary philosophical and theological ideas, defending immaterialism and theism. Now let's discuss legacy and influence. First, his influence on idealism. Think of a groundbreaking artist whose unique style inspires a new movement in art. Berkeley's immaterialist philosophy laid the groundwork for later developments in idealism. Philosophers such as Immanuel Kant and Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel were influenced by Berkeley's ideas about the centrality of perception and the role of the mind in constituting reality. Next, contributions to empiricism. Consider a scientist whose experiments challenge and refine the prevailing theories of the time. Berkeley's radical empiricism contributed to the development of the empirical tradition in philosophy. His insistence on the primacy of sensory experience influenced later empiricists and the development of phenomenology. Lastly, the philosophy of perception. Imagine a pioneer who maps out new territories, providing a foundation for future exploration and discovery. Berkeley's work on the nature of perception and the critique of abstract ideas has had a lasting impact on the philosophy of perception. His ideas continue to be discussed and debated in contemporary philosophical discourse.